Okay, once again here with the mighty Michael McGann talking to us about these flying experiences. So we're into 1979, 1980, and so what do you got this time there, Dad?
Well, '79 was an exciting year. We started off in April or so, and it took a bunch of guys some work. We flew down to Reno. Gail was with us and all that. It's pretty exciting. Came back, lost a little bit of money down there. So that was our first major trip. And then a bunch of friends and people living in Olinger decided we were going to go down to the Flying A Ranch, which is in Ruth, California. And we flew down there and made a landing. I had to fly down a kind of a long canyon. And it's a very, very, very nice place. And it starts out helping a guy take off with his Bonanza. And so I had to prop his airplane for him, but I took my arm off. And then we flew out of there. I think there's a little bit of video of that. So anyway, he finally got it running, and I'm already out of the picture. And taking off down at the Flying A Ranch, which you take off and it's kind of scary because you got to climb up over that canyon there and then make a hard right turn to get out of there. Didn't look like he was going to make it, but he did. And shortly thereafter, I got on my old 310 and followed him up. And it was interesting because as we were getting back in toward Portland, we were on an instrument flight plan, and was able to play down in the clouds on the instrument flight thing. But that's still kind of a treacherous flying area. And that's the airplane. Before we take off, we were getting ready to bust out. You know, that's one of our neighbor's planes.
That's Andy's Baron at the time.
Yeah. And that's, there we are taking off out of Flying A Ranch. It's a little bumpy, because Charlene's holding the camera, you know, and you know how ladies are. And so...
boy, that's not a very good comment.
I'm in trouble now. Yeah. So we're taking off and making the right turn through that canyon. Here's what we're doing. Actually, we're making an instant approach into Hillsboro. And so I thought, well, shoot, clouds aren't that bad. So I was going to use the vectors and so forth and just kind of play around and dive through a bunch of clouds and have some fun doing that. And so it gives you an idea, kind of what it's like. Couldn't do this without an instrument flight plan. And so we made some turns and dinked around in the clouds, and ATC didn't bother them any because I was pretty close to the vectors they gave me.
Yeah, pretty mild stuff there.
Yeah, pretty mild, but still
fun.
You get to fly into some of that white stuff, and so it was pretty nice. Anyway, shortly thereafter, Andy gave me a chance to fly in his AT-6. He had an AT-6 and later on in the summer, and so flying an AT-6 is really, really kind of fun. It gives you the old Second World War II feeling. And later on, so he and I flew my 310 and he flew his AT-6. We all met over at Sun River. And it's pretty funny. It was a beautiful day. We had lunch and all that. And then I took off and I headed back to Hillsboro. And Andy took off, but somehow he got stuck in his belt, the control stick. And he was fighting, and he was taking off out of there, getting close to liftoff, and he's fighting to get this doggone thing stuck out from under his belt. And he's diving all over the runway like this. And the tail sweeps over and hits the barbed wire fence and grabs up about 100 feet of wire and a fence post, and off he goes. And the guy who was running the airport there turned him into the FAA, thought he was flying drunk or something. Anyway, he flew all the way back to Hillsboro with that 100 foot of wire hanging and a post hanging on the back end of his AT-6. It was pretty funny. Yeah. So,
boy, he's lucky there.
Yeah, this is flying into Cottage Grove later on that year. We flew in there with a bunch of people, and it was kind of an aviation thing, and rode a train and did all that. So, yeah, that was a pretty exciting exciting trip too. And then,
what was the AT-6 like flying that?
well, finally, it's a very solid airplane, and it's kind of like, but heavy on the controls, and but I felt pretty comfortable in it, and flew around a bit, and then, but I can't say how he could have got that thing. It might have been a little overweight or something. I don't know how he got the doggone stick stuck in under his belt somehow, but who knows?
Well, I think he said he actually buckled it.
Oh, buckled.
When he buckled his belt, he somehow got it around the stick.
Yeah, well, you never know.
Yeah.
It's a heck of a story, and he's lucky he didn't really hurt himself.
Oh, yeah.
In that deal.
But I can remember that. I remember going up with him when I was about 12, and boy, that thing was definitely heavy, but I was 12, so.
Yeah, well, later on in July that year, we took the plane, and Jeff and I and Charlotte, we flew down to California and went to Disneyland and did all that, and flew back and almost a nonstop for that 310, and had a good tail width, and so we made it all the way back. And then later on that year in November, and November seemed to be a bad year for me, but we had a good weather, and so Charlie and I hopped into the old 310, and we were going to fly up to Roche Harbor, and it was just gorgeous up there, and I flew in and made a downwind landing and downhill landing, and Roche Harbor, there's just a little bit of a downhill runway if you're flying from the east. And so I made the most perfect landing. I mean, it was so smooth. It's one of those "are we down yet" type of things. The problem was my right foot was dragging a little bit on the brake or something, so as the tire came over the runway, it didn't get enough hit like I normally drop it on the runway. You know, you bang and the wheels start turning and you're fine. In this case, the wheel just burned along and burned a hole in the bottom of the tire, and it had a bang, flat tire. So there I am, flat tire in the middle of the runway off to the left, and thinking horrible thoughts and blaming whoever but me. And I'm sitting there encouraging, how am I going to get this tire fixed? I'm going to have to fly somebody from Anacortes. I'm going to fly over. It's going to cost me a bundle of money. And this guy drives up in his pickup truck, and he looks over and he says, "What do you got there?" He says, "I had a flat tire." So it's a little cranky. He said, "Well, I just happen to have a 310 up on my hangar up here on Roche Harbor, and I don't think I might have a tire that might fit your plane." So he runs up there and he gets this tire, comes down and helps me change the tire, and gets it on the runway, and he charged me $60 for the tire. I mean, how lucky can you get? Hopped in the airplane and we flew home with a brand new tire for $60. I mean,
wheel too, I remember.
Yeah. Well, not
Wasn't
the wheel.
it? Oh, just the tire. So
just the tire.
So he took the tire. He took the wheel off.
Yeah, he took
changed the tire.
Had brought down a jack and everything. We jacked it up and took the tire off, and he changed the tire and the wheel and all that. And
well, that's cool. Did he? And he had a 310 in his hangar, huh?
Yeah. I didn't get up there and see it because I was down there taking at the airplane because we were kind of blocking the runway where we were. So that was pretty exciting for the November. And as we got into 1980, it was a pretty quiet year. We did a lot of local stuff. We went to Reno again and lost some more money, but that's the way it goes in Reno. And then did the St. Helens thing and all that. And then at the time I was working pretty hard, and we had a manufacturing plant up in the Vancouver area in Canada. So I was flying up there in I think it was September. Flew up into Vancouver, cleared customs, spent a couple of days doing my business, and then came back, and I'm flying back. Beautiful weather coming back heading into Portland. And I look over, I'm about maybe 60, 70 miles north of the Portland area, and I noticed my right engine oil pressure is 0. Holy mackerel, 0. I'm going to blow that engine. So I shut the engine down, decided to land at Portland, because there's an FBO there, flight craft, and to see what's wrong with the engine, maybe, you know. So I land there in Portland, and I'm thinking, I got to get this airplane home somehow. So I went and checked the oil. It was down a little bit, but not bad, and I didn't see anything wrong with the oil. I put in another 3 or 4 quarts, brought it up to full 11 quarts, and I thought, well, I'm going to see if I can get this thing home. I'm by myself. I'm low on gas, so I'm light. And so I decided...
And you're at Portland International.
Portland International. This 8,000-foot runway. And so I thought, well...
And you're like 15 minutes from the house, right?
Yeah, I'm 15 minutes away from home. Just got to get up to about 1,500 feet.
This is not recommended, folks.
Yeah, and so I think I'm going to do a single engine takeoff in my 310. Fired up, and I got the right engine running, and it's in idle. So it's idling, so I thought I'd had power there if I really needed it. And called ATC and tower, and they gave me clearance to go to the runway, and I went out to the runway. And I slowly brought the left engine up to power, and I was on the right side of the runway, and I did kind of a curve like this, and it kept firing full. Slowly brought the thing up to full power, and using the steering wheel to keep the thing lined up because the right engine was on idle. But at an idle, I wasn't getting dragged with it, and so I got down about maybe 4,000 feet, and I got as that red line. And that's lift off, and I kept it down another 1,000 feet or so, and I got about 10 knots above red line. I just lifted it off, and it was fine. I'm lightweight, and I climbed all the way up to about 1,600 feet. And I kept it low. I got the blue line, which is single engine control speed.
Okay, Dad. But with the gear, putting the gear up, didn't that create like a little bit of drag?
Well, as we were, like I was saying earlier on, you're steering the airplane with the rudder pedals in the front gear. So once you get going straight up around red line, that's the minimum single engine control at gross weight. Well, since I was about 800 pounds under gross weight, pretty lightweight, low on fuel, and just me, I figured once I broke ground a little bit above red line, had felt solid control, and halfway to the blue line. Then I kicked the gear up, and really didn't notice that much delay. And as soon as the gear went into place, we picked up speed pretty quick, and then the climb rate increased quickly.
And then no flaps.
No flaps. You wouldn't. Well, you don't normally take off the flaps with the 310 anyway. And so it was pretty easy from that point of view. It felt pretty comfortable.
So if the tower would have known that, you'd think you would have got in trouble?
Who knows? I mean. They must have thought something was suspicious because I was so slow getting started, And it's a good thing there wasn't a lot of people lined up to get into the airport then.
Yeah, if you had somebody on short final, it was a jet or something, that would have been tough.
Yeah, that might have been exciting.
You might have had to pop in that right engine for a little while.
Yeah, it could be. Who knows?
And then totally normal approach without problem, huh?
Yeah, no, and to Ollinger, there was no wind that day, so it was very, weather was good, and came in from the west like we normally do, and over the fields, and it was just no problem coming in full flaps and dropped the gear, and as long as I didn't have to make a go around, I was in Fat City.
Yeah, committed.
That was the end of my flying the 310 for almost 9 months because I decided that I'm going to learn how to overhaul an engine. So I pulled the engine, I did the whole overhaul myself, set the pistons out, ground the cylinder, did the whole thing, and put it back together, and in 1980, we'll talk about that later, but flew great, and that engine went to TBO. So
what had happened to the engine?
Well, it turned out that the oil pump had failed. I mean, had shredded in there, so it wasn't getting any oil pressure. There was some oil going through there, but not very much. The pit cylinder's still working, and so I probably could have put power to that engine, and it would have held up for a little while longer before it would have shredded itself. But since I left it at idle, and it never got really hot, so the engine didn't get hurt, other than the oil pump had to be replaced. So that was all.
But you overhauled it anyway.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it had to be overhauled. It was
right,
at high time. It was 950 hours on the engine, and to get at the oil pump, you got to pull the thing off the airplane anyway. So why not overhaul it?
Oh yeah, sure.
And,
but you wouldn't recommend single engine takeoffs?
Not very often. No, I really wouldn't.
I mean, it was in the 70s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you have to remember, I was by myself, and I was light on fuel, so I had.
And you were at sea level.
At sea level, right? So.
And it was in November.
No, it was in September.
Oh, September.
But still, it was cool, and there wasn't any wind, and the weather wasn't bad, so.
Were you nervous?
No, I felt pretty comfortable with it. The hardest part was getting the thing rolling. And I wonder what the tower was thinking that took me so long to get off the ground, 6,000 feet. So.
Yeah, they didn't say anything to you?
No, they didn't. And they said cleared for takeoff, and I said goodbye.
So it took you 4,000 feet just to get up to about 80 knots?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you had no thrust on the right engine at all?
No
like
thrust.
Maybe nothing, huh?
No, it was just at neutral, you know, I just left it at idle. So it wasn't dragging either, so that part was good. That's probably helped.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
you had emergency war power if you needed it.
yeah, I thought I could put power on it if something happened.
Yeah.
But it was actually pretty simple, and it flew easily.
Huh.
You know, and it's the 310 is a great single-engine airplane. I mean, the tip tanks and all that all help. And since I was pretty light on fuel...
so what were you getting out of your climb rate then?
You know, I'm trying to think. I was probably getting 600-700 feet when I got maximized, when I got out to blue line.
Huh.
So it climbed up. It was pretty comfortable. Once I got up to blue line, it was pretty comfortable flying it. So,
and you're just trimming out the rudder then?
Yeah, and then you have to do that much. Wasn't that, you know, once then I got over that was pretty exciting. And,
that sounds like it.
Yeah.
Well, okay, well then that about sums it up for these couple of years.
Yeah, well, I was on the ground for 9 months, and it took me till sometime in the 80s before I backed into 172 again while I was still working.
Or 81, I think it was. 81.
Yeah, 81.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Well, all right. Well, hey, that's an interesting story right there. But we'll leave it at that, gang.
See you next time.